Hello, Michael Hay here again, and welcome to audio blog number 5. I'm going to keep up the theme of making a useful blog for potential writers. This is really actually quite interesting. I have a terrible head cold right now, which comes after the crash of adrenaline rush and nervousness and lack of sleep because, of course, I'm in teacher's college at the moment and I have been on placement. But that placement has put me back in the classroom, and I have had the chance to see a senior level writer's craft from now the view of a teacher. So it has made me want to continue this blog, hopefully to help writers get started. So I left off with 7 rules of a writer from last time, and I'm going to keep running with that theme. I'm just going to keep adding to them. So rule number 8 is find your inspiration/muse, and more importantly, to recognize it. If you don't know what a muse is, it was a figure in ancient Greek mythology. I won't get into the details here, but look up Wikipedia's page because I'm pretty certain it's fairly accurate, though you can't always trust everything on Wikipedia. You're probably looking at a 70% correctness. But I will refer to it as inspiration. So, what inspires you to write? And that is actually a lot harder than you might think. So, what makes you want to write? Where is the inspiration for you to write a particular piece? I will go with my book, The Guardian, because it's the easiest example, and of course, since I wrote it, I'm the supreme authority on it in the universe. So my inspiration for writing came from me. It started with a question, and that of course was, what would I do with immortality? I believe I touched on that in an earlier blog, so I won't repeat myself too much. But furthermore, the inspiration was, how do I solve that question? I am a very quest, philosophical type inspirational person, or at least I think so myself. So whenever I write a book, it's usually how I would respond to that situation. Not much of a surprise that I appear as a character in most, if not all, of my articles, at least to some degree, or elements of myself. But like I said before, I spend long hours in contemplation, and I constantly self-analyze, and I've been told that I overanalyze everything way too much from the people that have had a peek at my journal. But that's what I do. So my sequel right now to The Guardian, which is 21,000 words in so far, so yay me, the inspiration for that was not only taking the characters from The Guardian, Philip and Sarah from the beginning and the end of it, but there is a new main character in the sequel which I have tentatively named Thorn, which would be the name of the book. Now, his creation was based off one of my feelings that I had. I believe I was bored and or just kind of disinterested, which basically sums up this character's motivation, I believe. So, my inspiration comes from me, but it can, for you, come from many different places. Some people are inspired when they listen to music. As I said before, I'm not musically inclined, but you might try writing to a piece of music. Or, you get that certain feeling when you're, listening to the radio and doing whatever it is you're doing and your head's kind of bopping along and you get a certain feeling. Well, you might be able to write in that moment, and that music or what you're doing influenced you. So my inspiration always comes from my immediate environment, and I've offered that advice to look to your immediate environment because that's what works for me. I'm not saying it will work for you, but you might want to try it. It's how I feel in certain situations, or what I think a certain solution would be, or just kind of answering a question. Some people, their inspiration will be, how can I take this world and turn it upside down so there's like a world underneath this world that we don't see? And you end up with things like the Little series, which, for those of you that don't know it, a book series from some years ago, where there's these little tiny miniature people that kind of have tails. They're like 6 inches tall, and they live in the walls kind of like mice, but they're just people, but they're small, and they keep themselves secret from big people. I believe there's a movie, The Borrowers, that was similar. And I'm sure there's plenty of instances of these, but there is another inspiration, like how can I take my current world and make it strange and have something underneath? So really that's just you thinking of how I can change, so it's a conscious choice. Or perhaps you watched somebody or listened to somebody deliver a speech. If you've ever listened to I Have a Dream from Martin Luther King, pay attention to how he speaks. It draws people in based on his presentation, and that might instill a certain feeling for you and encourage you to write about it. Or you might just like to make tales out of all the segments and snippets of conversation that you kind of walk through, basically eavesdropping. Or you can just create a totally new world with new laws of physics and doesn't resemble anything we have on Earth. And I have done this, though I haven't done it very often. Sometimes I'll get a piece of music stuck in my head. Yes, I know, music. And I will put it on repeat on my iPod, and I'll listen to it for hours. And I'll just put my headphones on, because I've got big ones, not the little inserts, and just close my eyes in a dark room and just listen to that piece of music over and over and over and over again. The only song I can think of that I ever did with that was from Fable 2, and I believe it was the Temple of Light theme song, which I know, coming from a video game, is actually kind of a moving piece. It's got a lot of emotion attached to it, and that wasn't entirely lost upon me. And perhaps you are inspired by other events in your life. The point I'm trying to make is I want you to try to consciously recognize these events and what actually inspires you to write. And know that and use it, because if all it takes is a piece of music, it's pretty easy to set up the situation so that you can listen to that music. Sometimes I'll take a favorite movie that I have and play it in the background. The 13th Warrior is like an old-time favorite, and I can follow along without even looking at the screen or even listening to it. I've played it so many times in the background, I can come into the movie and know exactly where I am. It doesn't take me any time to adjust to where we are in the story. And then I'll write or draw. Actually, that's how I prefer to draw, is with something on in the background. But yes, know what makes you write, what your inspiration is, and use it. And if you're having trouble getting started writing, go on a quest to find what inspires you. I mean, it might be, scrolling through microfilm at the local library. I mean, whatever. If it works for you, do it within the confines of the law. And I'll say this quite boldly, and this is my firm opinion, that drugs and alcohol do not make you a better writer. In fact, they detract from it. And I've seen some people that probably could have had a decent writing career just kind of fizzle and fade away into nothing. When I write, I need a clear head. Like, even right now, since I have a head cold, this audio blog my timer says I'm on 10 minutes, over 10 minutes, and by the time I edit that out, it's probably going to be like half the size. And this is like my third or fourth attempt to do it in this one sitting. Now, rule number 9, and it's more of a saying than really a rule, is there is no such thing as writer's block. Now, opinions vary on this, but I don't believe in writer's block. If you know your muse, you should never have problems with writer's block. And if your muse changes, well, then just go out and find it. And it might take you some time, but you will find it through perseverance. Even if you can't think of anything to write, just start writing this line. I can't think of anything to write. And just keep repeating it. And it might take you a couple of hundred lines, but eventually you'll get somewhere. Because I tried this once, and it eventually turned into a journal article because I was so concentrating on trying to write that it turned into something like, why am I concentrating so hard to write? It should be something natural, and that flowed through my pen. And I ended up with this little piece that is actually now lost, but it wasn't half bad. It wasn't any good, but like I said, there's no bad writing. It would probably be useful somewhere in one of my books. So, if you feel like you're up against a brick wall and you are believing in there is something such as writer's block, create an emotion. And that just means go out and do something about it. Find your muse. Maybe you're an adrenaline junkie and you gotta go skydiving to get that rush to be able to write. I mean, good luck. I hope you make it to the ground safely, but that is what you need to do to be able to write. For me, I'm also passionate enough about writing that even talking about writing makes me want to start writing. I've got some loose pages here that I was working on before I decided to attempt an audio blog because I haven't done one in a while. And yeah, I was in the middle of my sequel. And now I've got a couple of ideas that I want to go back to it with. But no two people are alike, 100% alike, that is. So find what works for you. But I firmly don't believe in writer's block.